From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Colorado's mountain towns are experiencing an unexpected summer slowdown in tourism after several years of record-setting numbers. Listen to these figures. European visitors to mountain towns in 7 western states, including Colorado, are down 39% compared to last year. Visits from Canadians dropped 58%. The trend has state and local officials concerned about the challenges this creates for communities where visitor spending drives the economy. So what's behind the sag in tourism, and what might bring it back? Colorado Sun reporter Jason Blevins recently wrote about the decline and how it's impacting local businesses.
Everybody loves the trip to the mountains, and those communities have long relied on tourism. They are tourism towns. Their entire economies are built around visitors, and that has been a record-setting levels of traffic. And it's looking like after a bit of a plateau in 2024 that 2025 will be a downturn for those mountain communities.
Visitors from other countries are visiting Colorado less often this year. How much of this is due to the current political climate in Washington?
That is a good question. And it's hard to actually pin that down, right? So it's hard to figure out why we're seeing such a steep collapse in international tourism. But those international tourists are critically important to these mountain communities. They come, they stay 8 days. They spend 5 times as much than a U.S. traveler. And those international travelers can really boost economies with fewer people in town, smaller impact in that community, and really growing a lot of local coffers with their stays. But how that's connected to the political climate, people say that the uncertainty around tariffs, the talk of, the sovereignty of Canada coming out of this present administration is apparently troubling Canadians. And they're saying, we're not going to come visit and spend our money in your country then.
You know that this is the first slowdown in overnight visitors since 2014, with the exception of those years during the pandemic. Some hotels or rental properties have raised rates a bit, but overall, what are businesses in these resort towns doing to cope?
Yeah, so what you're seeing with the lodge keepers and hoteliers, as the numbers of visitors decline, they raise their room rate, right? When volume's down, they increase their prices per room so that they can keep their revenues up. But that can be a dangerous sort of balance, right? Like if you get too high, people are going to say, wow, it's just too expensive to go for a mountain vacation. Let's go do that trip to Utah or, a trip to Canada if you've ever gone skiing up there. So there's a fear that the steadily increasing cost of a hotel room in a mountain town could be starting to exclude mountain vacations in Colorado from a lot of, domestic traveler sort of hit lists.
Local leaders in mountain towns have tightened rules around short-term housing rentals and driven up prices on them since the pandemic. I'm curious, how much are those price increases a factor in this?
Yeah, so since the pandemic, we have seen just a border-to-border crackdown on short-term rentals. A lot of people are very sure that the proliferation of short-term rentals over the past decade has impacted affordable housing. With these tourism crowds that came out of the pandemic and the strain on a workforce in some of these pricey mountain valleys, housing became a critical issue. And a lot of elected leaders started to pull on levers for short-term rentals, increasing fees, installing caps and regulations and limits on how many people could book. And the short-term rental advocacy groups started to say, we're happy to pay taxes, but if you continue to raise rates, we could see a decline. There will be ripple effects that kind of trickle out to everyone in our community, all the cleaners and all the service people that work on these houses. And, I spoke with a couple of those groups, Colorado Lodging and Resort Alliance, the Summit Alliance of Vacation Rental Managers. And, they're saying this is what we have been saying for years. We are seeing the negative effect of over-the-top regulation, and that is evident in this downturn and this slowdown.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's just, maybe those communities could ease off some of the restrictions or adjust some of the caps and limits that were imposed coming out of the pandemic. We have yet to see that, but obviously those advocacy groups are really promoting that and hoping for it.
Well, you mentioned some of the downsides of a boom in tourism. Colorado's mountain towns struggle with issues like a lack of affordable housing for full-time residents. Jason, could there be a bright side to this current slump in tourism?
Maybe this is just sort of a return to normal. Tourism moves in these ebbs and flows that are hard to really predict. And, is Colorado your grandparents' place to vacation? That seems to be a concern. It's been sort of the national leader for those winter holidays for a long time. And maybe folks are saying, hey, let's do that Utah vacation. Let's do that Montana vacation. People are going on cruises and amusement parks and international travel, all the things that maybe they weren't doing during the pandemic. So maybe this is a bit of a, bounce back to more traditional holiday sort of options, and Colorado's feeling that. But at the same time, it's undeniable that Colorado's economy, and especially in these mountain towns, is inextricably linked to visitor traffic and visitor spending. So the idea is finding this kind of harmony between tourism promotion as well as, a growing population of locals who is asking for, better protection of the lifestyle that they moved there for.
Well, lastly, Jason, how concerned are the local business leaders and tourism officials you talked with? How concerned are they this slump will extend into the winter season?
Very. There is no doubt that the wealthy Mexican skiers who come up to Vail, the Europeans, Russians, Brazilians who go to Aspen, they are absolutely critical to those two communities in the winter. And if this slump in the summer continues into the winter, we are going to see a significant downturn in lodging tax revenue, and that will trickle into just about every corner of these mountain communities. There are very few people that are entirely removed from the tourism economy there. So this is going to be fascinating to watch how those communities might react, with this downturn. And will we see, an easing up on that focus on local lifestyle amenity sort of things? Will locals be willing to say, accept, I don't know, their recreation center not being open 7 days a week sort of thing because of declining lodging tax revenues? Is that something that locals are going to be willing to accept as tourism slows down? Or maybe they will say, hey, let's get back on that, big promotional train and drive some traffic.
Jason Blevins is a reporter for the Colorado Sun. We'll include a link to his story about a summer tourism slump in the mountains in our show notes and at KUNC.org. We'll also include a link to a recent conversation with Jason about how tariffs are affecting Colorado's outdoor businesses and how AI referees might change the way we watch sports. That's it today for In The NoCo. I'm Erin O'Toole. Thanks so much for listening.